Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everyone around the world. Happy Shochu'sday. This is episode number 107, coming to you live from various parts of Tokyo, Japan. To all of you around the world, Kanpai, whatever you have in your glass right now, feel free to tell us about it in the comments, either on YouTube or on Facebook. And today I have with me the inimitable Max Salman, who we will get into it with very, very shortly. But first of all, good morning, Mac. Thank you for joining us on the
Absolute
show this
pleasure,
morning.
Chris. Good morning, everybody. Good evening if you're in the US, and if you're ever in Europe and you've stayed up to watch this, then good everything
Bless,
because
yeah,
you're legends.
bless you. Yeah. So as we do, and we're gonna quickly jump into talking about Mac and his recent trip and travels and journeys through Kagoshima, very southern Kyushu island. I just want to throw up there the banner that always starts us off, and that's the booze news and what's happening, what's moving, what's shaking in the world of Japan's alcohol industry. We usually like to focus on spirits, but we're happy to also throw a bone to folks in the sake and the beer world. And I think Mac, you had found something that you said you could share or talk about. What's going on that caught your eye?
Sure. Well, first of all, I should say that last weekend was the 8th anniversary of the Shugenji tap room and brewery run by Baird Beer.
Oh wow.
And I went down there all the way down to Shusenji, which is, in deepest, darkest Shizuoka.
Hmm.
About 2 hours to get there from Tokyo,
Okay.
but well worth it. Absolutely fantastic party, fantastic festival, great music, lots of great food available as well, and more importantly, some all-you-can-drink bed beer, which I enjoyed across the 2 days of the festival. So, bed, some people may remember from the last time I was on, I talked about the Maxion Planet, which is my travel business, and Shochu Pro, which is Chris's Shochu business collaboration cherry blossom viewing party that we do. And when we have been able to do that, before global pandemics hit, we've served draft bed beer in Yoyogi Park, so a brewery that's very important to our heart. And
Right.
yeah, congratulations to them.
Nice. Yeah, that must have been a hoot. 2 days of all you can drink in Shuzenji. Shuzenji couldn't have been. That's nothing to sniff at. Was it
Yeah,
expensive?
it's very impressive. They've got a great campground there as well. So I mean, year round, you can go and set yourself up in your tent, and
Did you camp out?
they've also got some cabins as well. I'm not the world's greatest camper, so where there are alternative options, and I had one. I ended up actually staying with Sam, who's their digital media guru, as opposed to pitching up in a
Okay.
tent. I have camped there in the past, and it's yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It was great weather, so it would actually have been a fantastic weekend to have camped.
Yeah. Oh, I one of the last remaining good weekends, I think, as we enter rainy season up here. So,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
you may have dodged a bullet anyway.
Yeah, we did actually. We were very, very lucky. It kind of basically started raining overnight on Sunday night uh, on my return to the world's greatest metropolis. So yeah, so that was absolutely fantastic. I think that's been one of the big things in the beer world. And then in terms of Nihonshu,
Uh
there's a
huh.
lot of festival. There's all sorts of festivals starting up and kicking
Yeah.
around the country. And one of the big ones is the Japanese Sake Fair, which is going to be on the 17th and 18th of June. That's sort of sponsored or organized by the JSS as well, the Japan
Okay.
Sake and Shochu Association.
Uh huh.
And that's going to be absolutely huge for the sake world. So uh, I think that those are kind of the big things really happening around beer and sake at the moment. What have you
Gotcha.
got for us, Chris?
July 23rd and July 24th in Fukuoka at the Dome, at the PayPay Dome. There's a big Honkaku Shochu and Awamori. They're calling it the Umaimon Matsuri, which is deliciousness fair. I guess you could probably translate it as. I didn't have time to count how many distilleries are involved here, but it looks like from top to bottom, we've even got some Honshu distilleries involved, and then dozens of Kyushu and Okinawan distilleries. Again, 23rd and 24th of July, if you happen to be in Fukuoka, we're talking 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the Saturday the 23rd, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday the 24th. And it looks like the tickets to get in, it says the advanced tickets are 700 yen and the on the day tickets are 800 yen. So it's basically nearly free to get in. I have no idea what type of pay to play goes on inside, whether you have to buy additional tickets to get drinks and potentially food. But it's nice. Nature is healing. It looks like we have actual events, people in person who are, going to be finally taking some of the risks that seemed so impossible not even 6 months ago. But yeah, holla freaking Luya.
That event sounds absolutely fantastic. The only downside is you'll have to go inside the PayPay Dome.
PayPay Dome. That's kind of yeah.
You might be tainted by some SoftBank hawks.
Yeah. So you have been warned, basically. Yeah. So make sure to lather up, I guess, before you go in.
It's a shame that we can't have events like that at Jingu Stadium, right? I mean, just imagine, some open air beer, shochu, sake festival, right? On the
turf.
Hello turf at Meiji Jingu Stadium, home of the Tokyo Yakult Swallows. That would be absolutely fantastic.
It's just the Jingu drives a much harder bargain. It's probably way more expensive. Nobody wants to spend time in that dome. So
yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway, we have a couple of people chiming in. We had Colby in San Diego saying he's drinking Tenguzakura Ike no Hara Genshu, which is a phenomenal sweet potato shochu out of a Isho bean, which is awesome. Those
fantastic.
have recently hit the California market as of just earlier this spring. Nice work there. And John Goes has a question for you, and I guess this is a nice lead into the introduction here. No Aloha Bar background, which is apt. And I think that's probably the perfect segue to introduce Mac in a little bit more detail. If you didn't catch him the first time when he was on, when he talked with Steven a few months ago, Mac Salman, very dear friend of mine, of many people watching right now, is leading two very dynamic companies, one being Maction Planet, the second and more recent and perhaps more, well, in terms of developing and putting out content, the more precocious of the two right now, Kanpai Planet, is absolutely tearing it up in the drink space, the Japanese drink space, and staying warm and staying limber and staying ready for when tourism resumes on any substantive level for Kanpai Planet for Maction Planet to really get back into it. But without further ado, Mac Salman, round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, no, pleasure entirely. Thank you for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm going to hit John's question on the head, first of all, and just make it very clear for people who only know me through watching my whiskey reviews at youtube.com/KanpaiPlanet that I do not actually live in a bar. I don't own that particular bar, which is Aloha Whiskey in Ikebukuro, one of the absolute best whiskey bars in the world's greatest metropolis, Tokyo. So no, when I'm not there, I am actually in some other places. And John, just to make you happy and people like you happy, I have deliberately worn the trademark blue navy, which has been a characteristic of my whiskey reviews. Not the long sleeve shirt that I'm often seen wearing at the bar, but a short sleeve polo, which graced some of my initial product. Anyway, enough in references. Let me just give everybody a brief recap. I've been in Japan for 16 years. And as Chris has said, right now, I basically have two operations, as it were. One is travel related, Maction Planet. So that was a tour company I set up at the start of 2017. And things, I'm very pleased to say, went extremely well. until, I'm not pleased to say,
Mm.
there was a global pandemic over the last 2 years. So during that period, some of the things I've done have been pivoting online and doing a few online tours and online cooking courses. I've done some domestic tours for residents of Japan, be they either Japanese or non-Japanese. And then the third project, which started about a year ago, was Kanpai Planet, which is a drinks content platform. Right now, primarily video led. So about well, on average, I would say once every 10 days, once every 2 weeks, I've released a video about some topic of Japanese drinks, be it, or I used to say Japanese drinks actually. And I think it was around the time I was on last time that I had started to say Japan's drinks, because of course, when you say Japanese drinks, that implies a kind of indigenousness to the proceedings, right? Shochu or
Hmm.
Nihonshu. But actually, if you can imagine a Venn diagram, very simple. I have a first class master's in maths and physics. Chris, I know you don't, so I'm going to keep it straightforward for you.
All right, yeah.
Here's a
Talk to
circle
the plebes.
of Japan, and here's a circle of drinks. And wherever there's even the vaguest intersection, then I could be found potentially in the future, and that's fair game for Kanpai Planet. So over the last year, the majority of that content has been whiskey focused and Nihonshu focused. The whiskey has taken the form of drinks reviews, but in those drinks reviews, I've tried to do things a little bit differently to maybe how people typically review drinks, actually visiting distilleries, interviewing chief blenders or CEOs of companies and kind of incorporating them so people have, as much color and as much information about what they're drinking. And then uh, on the Nihonshu side, probably the biggest project I've done, in fact, probably one of the absolute biggest projects of my life, was making Sake on Sado, which was this
Yeah.
9-part documentary that I put out throughout March of this year, which documented my 1 week experience making Japanese sake up at a brewery on Sado Island.
Hmm.
And I know you guys have given that a shout out in the past on Shochu'sday. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate that. And anybody watching who has watched those videos, I really appreciate that as well, because they cost me a lot of money to make, and
Sure.
and took 7 months actually to kind of
To
from
plan
doing
and
the experience to actually release. It was quite something.
yeah, the that whole series of 9 videos is that shit should be on Netflix or something. I'm not sure which is the preferred platform these days, but if you're listening, guys, get out, contact Mac and license that stuff off of him, because it is definitely of that echelon of quality. And it's very clear that at least half a year of prep, of filming, of editing, of pimping went into that. Remarkable, really, when you put it all in context, or when you put it all side by side. Even just one of those videos by themselves is enough to write your own ticket on. So if you haven't watched the making the Sake on Sado, what do you refer to 9 episodes as? Well, the season there.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a season one of
Then
one.
you, yeah,
But,
then you
but
should
I
go
say,
and
yeah,
watch it.
I always talk about a series, the Making Sake
Oh,
on
okay.
Sado series.
There you go.
One introductory video, one video per day of my experience, and then a video at the end, which we kept as a surprise all the way until release, but where I actually tasted the sake itself with Chris Hughes,
Hmm.
one of your colleagues from the Sake on Air podcast,
Right.
but a certified sake professional, educator, and advocate. And yeah, it was good. I was really nervous during that, but he actually said some nice things about
I
about
know
what we.
you. How much you gotta figure out. I wonder where the borderline of our friendship ends here. Does it end on camera, or does it?
Yeah, this is absolute shite.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
cut. We're done here.
Oh wait, hold on. Delete. No, yeah, Mac is absolutely killing it, and that's obviously much appreciated from people of my ilk who are out there slinging booze around the world, and having other people just telling these stories in an authentic manner is just priceless, really. So, yeah, hats off to you, everything that you've been doing heretofore, and excited to hear what you got in the works. Can you give us a little peek into that?
Sure. There's actually a lot of planning and prep I've got at the moment. If you see my big beast that I do the vast majority of my editing on, you'll see a number of tabs. So um, yeah, I'm there in terms of, say, for example, where I'm going to put the whiskey reviewing sort of talents to,
Uh-huh.
or effort, I should just say effort to, whether it's talented or not, I'll let the viewers decide. But certainly the effort that's going to go into is going to go into reviews of Hakshu Distillers Reserve, which is the no age statement Hakshu that Suntory put out.
Okay.
Kanosuke, which maybe is a nice segue into talking a bit about Kagoshima's drink scene. I've got a bottle of some of their liquid up here.
Hmm.
They're releasing their limited edition for 2022. It's actually delayed until the 24th of June.
Oh,
That's yeah. Anyway, I'll be as soon as that comes out, I'll be putting that to the test. And then Iroiro, various other whiskies as well. There are also some distilleries I haven't covered yet that I'm putting a lot of work into getting on Kanpai Planet. So one of them is Akeshi, which is
oh,
up in Hokkaido, all the way on the other
okay.
side of the country to where you spend most of your time down in Kyushu.
Mm.
Um, so that's what's going on that front.
Can
I've
I
also, yeah,
interject and
sorry.
just ask, just for people out there? I know a lot of people watching, and again, if you haven't watched any of the Kanpai Planet videos, you absolutely must after this is done. But can you just share with people how much time goes into producing and what your time is spent on in terms of producing just one of those videos?
Sure. So I try to keep each video around 10 minutes long. And to produce that, even just like what I would call a sort of basic whiskey review video, takes me a minimum of 36 hours. And it tends to be about maybe 12 hours of prep work in terms of what I refer to as kind of scripting, but it's really the research phase,
Okay.
trying to pin down the information which I want to deliver. Like my goal really is with each of these things for it to be, the most in non-Japanese language, English language information about that particular drink that has ever been combined, in one place.
Uh-huh.
Um, and you can get down some pretty deep rabbit holes. So another video that's upcoming, it's been upcoming for about a year. Uh,
For a
if
year.
David Tsujimoto was here for the owner of Aloha Whiskey, he would laugh because every few weeks for the last year, he's asked me, "Oh, what's coming up?" And I've said to him, "I'm going to film that video about Nika from the barrel." So Nika
Uh,
whiskey from the barrel is
yeah.
a very famous, the little squat bottle. I'm sure almost everybody watching this is going to be familiar with that. It's exported pretty widely around the world, and it's a pretty iconic Nika whiskey. And just when I go to film it, I find out some other piece of information that I want to include in the video. The most recent
Oh.
one, I went down this huge rabbit hole using the Wayback Machine, which is the Internet Archive machine, where I uncovered a Nika catalog from 1997, which actually had more information about the composition of the whiskey than I had previously found or Nika are willing to admit in the modern age. So
Huh.
finding ways to incorporate that. So that's where that 12 hours basically goes into things like that, or
Internet rabbit holes.
in the internet rabbit holes.
I am
And
familiar.
also, the way things have been done for so long in this country, in many industries, including the drinks industry, is that there is definitely this very pervasive, um, father knows best attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So which you see especially from Suntory, who are by far and away the biggest drinks company in Japan, the third largest, certainly in terms of spirits, the third largest distiller on Earth now, because they own Beam Suntory.
Right.
And they've just been used to 100 years of putting stuff out and saying, here you go, you don't have many alternatives, and you're going to drink it up, and we're not really going to tell you what's inside. We're going to put out a lot of stuff about the ancient Japanese art of whiskey blending, which I think goes back thousands of years to the mythical Emperor Kenmu in 660 BC. But yeah, they just don't want to tell you stuff. But you can through sheer force of will find out where they made a little slip. Where the chief blender Shinji Fukuyo went to London and accidentally told spirits business what the composition of this drink was or that drink was.
He had one too many that night at the pub, and little did he know he was being recorded.
Exactly, and little did the reporter know that if that was the Nikkei newspaper here, they wouldn't print it. It would just be, it was all off the record. And anyway, so that's that, and then there's the filming phase, and sometimes that can, because of the technical errors, that can have to happen multiple times, which can be quite frustrating. But anyway, typically I'll turn up and I'll set up, and you've got to film your B-roll and then film kind of the main take. So that's a minimum of a 6 or 7 hour endeavor. And then the rest of it is just editing, uploading that footage, sorting that footage, and then trying to assemble it into something which is, well-paced and edutaining, as I like to say.
Edutaining, evocative. Yeah, you need to get... That's a challenge. Keeping people engaged for 10 minutes on YouTube is a feat. And you accomplish it every time. So hats off to you. And the amount of work just is jaw-droppingly intense. 36 hours on going from however many hours of footage you have down to 10 minutes is just... It makes my brain vomit inside of itself, almost just trying to fathom how traumatizing that must be every time. But you either have an appetite for it or you don't, and you clearly do. And has it gotten any easier?
So
yes and no.
Yes and no. And I actually, my answer to this is publicly documented. One of the things that led into Kanpai Planet was, on my travel business, there is a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/MactionPlanet, and that has various different contexts, various different content, all around the theme of Japan. So anything from, I think the most watched video on there is when I went to Super Nintendo World. There's vlogs of the Rugby World Cup. There's some taste test stuff like proto Kanpai Planet stuff. There's even I made a video of the whiskey festival that me and you both went to in 2019.
Oh wow!
When you were exhibiting, I think a terrible photo of us is the thumbnail. Even that thumbnail didn't dissuade 2,300 people from watching that thing. Anyway, I set myself a challenge at the end of October 2020 of making one video a week for 12 weeks on the Maction Planet channel, and the final video was a video about the things I'd learned from that challenge. I think it was called eight things I learned from 8 things I learned from 12 weeks and 4 years on YouTube. And one of them was that it gets easier and harder. It gets easier because the stuff you're doing more and more and more. But the thing is with video, especially, is as you do it more often, you want to make it better. Like I watch stuff I produced a year ago, and I just think, oh my God, like, why was that shot on for 3 frames too long, or often 3 frames too short,
Yeah, right.
So your bar goes up concurrent with certain core skills becoming more embedded, like driving a car, and that offset, I think, basically means it gets harder as you go along.
Yeah, you just give yourself more stuff to do and more things to worry about, and you learn more things about the software that just, I can't leave that transition just like that. So that there goes another 90 minutes right there. Yeah,
exactly right. And there's like knowing that you can sort of do it. The only obstacle is time. You're like, but it would make it better. Um, Something I've wrestled with because, of course, there is such a thing as the content treadmill. Um, for all of us out there, you need to be seen to be out there and relevant. And some of that relevant does come from putting out regular content, right? So,
Sure.
for the last year, I have tried to wrestle with, well, is there like shorter form, maybe not even shorter form stuff, but just stuff that requires the things that really take time, kind of, editing quality, B-roll, information. And I think over the next 12 months, you're going to see a little bit more of that type of content as well, a little bit more candid, conversations about the drinks industry. And I've very much been inspired by what you and Stephen are doing with, for example, Shochu'sday, right? That it's, people are getting information and they're learning about the industry and they're learning about the people in it, in a format that doesn't require you guys to go and edit it,
Yeah.
for 36 hours afterwards.
Man, respect. And I think that's a good transition right there in terms of the information. Also, you mentioned before Kanpai Planet, your Maction Planet, your first real online endeavor, anyway, at least within my memory's length. And you took that show on the road, so to speak, and you combine the two quite often. Maction Planet and Kanpai Planet are often double dipping. You do trips to places and you make sure to pump out some content on both, which is remarkable. Let's move ourselves down to Kagoshima, where you were recently. Can you tell us a bit about that trip and some of the highlights, some of the lowlights, if there were any? I know running into me down there was absolutely a lowlight, but other than that, let's keep it positive.
Yeah, for the viewers here, let's start them off on the high note before we take them down. So the high note was I was very far away from Chris for the first part of my trip to Kagoshima.
Yeah.
I went down there in the middle of May, and rainy season is funny. Rainy season, we got it in Tokyo now. We were dancing a little bit with rainy season there. We got lucky during our Kagoshima time. But before I went to Kagoshima mainland, I'm sure you've educated the audience here phenomenally well, Chris, over the last 107 episodes. But people know Kagoshima is a prefecture of Japan, but also confusingly, I think that it's also the name of the main capital city of that prefecture. And I say confusing because when I say Kagoshima, I mean, I often mean the city, just as a default. So, and, I would refer to Ibuski and Chiran and Yakushima as, other parts of Kagoshima prefecture, but I'd always refer to them by name. But what I find typically is my Japanese friends or locals, when they say Kagoshima, they mean Kagoshima prefecture. So when I ask for recommendations, like ramen recommendations, they're recommending things that are like 2.5 hours drive from Kagoshima city. And I'm like, no, that's
not helpful.
That's not helpful. Like I want to be 2 minutes walk in Tenmonkan.
Right.
So I did a pretty comprehensive trip across Kagoshima prefecture this time round. I've been there once before in October, and the fruits of that can be seen on some videos on Kanpai Planet, because at that time I visited the Kanosuke distillery and the Tsunuki distillery. Mm-hmm. So this time round I did things a bit differently, went a bit further afield, and my first stop was Yakushima. Now, Yakushima is actually 20% of that island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the reason why it's such a natural monument is because of its cedar forests. So Yakusugi, as it's known, Yakushima, and Sugi means cedar. And we're talking here, to be defined as Yakusugi, you're basically looking at growth over 1,000 years old. So these ancient, beautiful cedar forests that inspired, the landscape of the famous Studio Ghibli film, Princess Mononoke.
Right.
Which was absolutely, just a beautiful moss-covered tree roots, going up in the mountains. I know, because last time I was there, about 10 years ago, I did this famous hike, which is called the Jomon-sugi, where you go to a tree which is allegedly 7,000 years old. But when you get there, there's a sign that says, scientists say this is about 1,200 years old. So, but you have to get there to the top to find out that all this stuff.
That it lets you down at the top.
The the local legends are not quite correct. Anyway, So yeah, this time around I did another very, very aggressive hike, which is probably the hardest hike I've done in Japan. But luckily, before that, on the drinks front, I made a special visit to Homboshuzo's facilities there.
Nice.
So people may know shochu on Yakushima from mitake, right? Which
Yeah.
uh, you know pretty well. Certainly as a drink, it's so ubiquitous, right? Even
It
in
has become
Tokyo,
so, yeah.
it's really quite impressive that you think of Yakushima, this sort of small island, about 30 minutes flight from Kagoshima City, or I think a 2 hour or so boat ride. That their produce has actually become one of the most common brands that you can see around Tokyo, often even when an izakaya only has one shochu or two shochus. It's
They
very
have
possible for
mitake, which, yeah,
mitake.
10 years ago would have been impossible. Now it's a different story.
Right. So there's that. They're the big guys, but in terms of their facility, but Hombo Shuzo have a shochu distillery on the island, pretty
Hmm.
small. It's called the Denshogura is how they refer to it. And I visited that with two hats on. One was obviously I really wanted to see the shochu activities there, but also at that facility they have an aging cellar for whiskey,
Yeah.
which is called imaginatively the Yakushima aging cellar. And I should point out here that we like using the word cellar in this country to it doesn't mean. I think when we a Westerner says cellar, they immediately assume this is some underground cave, right? Some
Yeah.
some facility, some basement, right? These
Yeah.
things are not typically
No,
they're like
there
that.
there are windows.
Yeah, there are windows and it's a building. It's a warehouse. But I
Yeah.
think it's more romantic. I like Yakushima aging cellar versus Yakushima aging warehouse. I think the first culprits are maybe Suntory. They have an aging site at Omi,
Okay.
OHMI, as it would be written in Romaji. And they refer to that as the Omi aging cellar. And I think therefore it's sort of caught on in the drinks world. So anyway, a warehouse, kind of two warehouses really that they've kind of built back to back. The first one, I think, in 2014, and an extension much more recently. And in that, they're aging liquid, which has been distilled in their two distilleries, which they have.
Right.
And one of those is in the mountains of Nagano Prefecture in Shinshu. So
Right.
it's known as the Mars Shinshu Distillery, but the whiskey brand that comes from there, excuse me, let me get an object lesson, is this.
Such a good expression. That stuff is so good.
In fact, as it happens, this random bottle that I've picked up from the shelf is one of the double sellers. See, sellers again. Oh,
There it is.
not making this up. So if you can see that where my finger is pointing, it says this way, matured at Shinshu and Yakushima, right?
Yeah.
So they're taking liquid from Komagatake. They're taking liquid from Tsunuki, which is their distillery in Kagoshima Prefecture.
Yeah, proper,
then,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And then they're aging those, or some of it anyway, in Yakushima.
Sellers.
And it's quite an aggressive climate to be aging whiskey there. So where typically the angel share, again, I'm sure that's a term that people watching are familiar with, but it's basically the amount of evaporation you get from the barrel every year going up into the heavens. At Mars Shinshu, which is very mountainous climate in the Japanese Alps, you're looking at 2 to 3%. At Tsunuki, they're looking at around 6%, and at Yakushima, they can be looking at around 8%. So, very, very aggressive. But they say it's worth it. They say the loss of this liquid is more than justified by the unique character that the climate is giving to the barrels. Also, interestingly, in that same aging cellar, they're also aging some of the shochu that they produce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've had some of those bottles, actually.
Yeah.
It's they're aging it in what's called jisugi. So I mentioned earlier on the yakusugi is has to be over 1,000 years old to be called yakusugi. But of course, there's other younger trees growing on the island, and if you're only 100 years old and we make a barrel out of that tree, then that's called jisugi. So they're
Mm.
aging some of their liquid that they're producing next door at the Shochu distillery in those barrels. And cedar, it gives really quite an interesting twist to proceedings, right?
I think the word aggressive again is a good one.
Yeah, it's not, there's kind of a reason why cedar hasn't historically been used, to age kind of whiskey, I think, in Scotland or other parts of the world. But it's interesting now that with all of this cask experimentation that's going on, it's interesting to see that coming more and more into, Japanese aging. And also, they have a little shop, obviously, and
Yeah, very little shop.
yeah, which is basically what most people visit. Actually,
Uh-huh.
the kind of access that I was able to get, I'm very grateful for. That I think that was courtesy of the media arm, I guess, that I have. I made a video, as a result of going there, and
Mm.
some of the shots I was able to take. But I think for most people, the experience is coming in and visiting the shop and buying some omiyage, some souvenirs. And we're super, if somewhere is famous for something, you're going to find that manifest in the souvenirs, right?
Of
So
course.
if you're famous for cedar, then you have to offer people some cedar related.
Everything you can imagine, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly. So the way to bring that into a drink outside of distilling it out of cedar wood itself is to do that aging.
Mhm.
The Shochu distillery that they have there is really lovely. I mean, it's tiny, it's small. I think by
Yeah,
you know,
it certainly
um,
is.
yeah, they've got one still,
Hmm.
but they do the whole thing there. They've got their bottling line, and everything is it's a super it's a wonderfully clean, beautiful space, and yeah, they're producing some interesting shochu out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hombo, yeah, they do a lot of beautiful things wherever they happen to be doing them. And yeah, you just identified the three major areas: Nagano, Kagoshima proper, and then Yakushima of all places. Like to stick a distillery down there, and to ferry casks back and forth. You
Yeah,
know, it's quite the project.
it is quite
Hats
the
off.
operation, and yeah, they've clearly seen some value in in being able to do that, and now having these three, you know, I won't say very. I mean, Yakushima and Sanuki, I guess, are geographically quite close to each other, but the
Yeah,
fact that you've got this unique, island climate, like if you go and visit, you can see that the distillery, from the distillery, you're just looking straight into the mountains in the center of the island. So
right.
all of that, the clouds and mist coming down, plus then having the sea on the other side, again super close
Yeah,
to the distillery. That combination is creating this very very unique aging environment, which uh, is creating this kind of really interesting character from the spirits that they're taking there.
yeah. Very a lot of respect for Hombo and Mars by extension, everything they do. So where did you? That beautiful place. Everybody who is out there listening, if you haven't heard of Yakushima before, look it up. I'm sure Mac will be putting out some video related to it before too long. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I put out what's known as a YouTube short
Oh,
or
that's right. Yeah,
an Instagram reel. I put out a vertical video in a 1 minute of 1 minute length, where
59 seconds.
59 seconds, which I covered my time at the Yakushima aging cellar, and I wanted
Hmm.
to see how popular that was before investing time in making a full length video. You see, one of the issues with video, I think I said this to Stephen the last time I was on as well. I do a lot of writing, but I'm literally not bothered about who reads anything I write. I mean, like
Uh huh.
I do this weekly blog post on the Maction Planet blog. Um, sometimes that gets a handful. I mean, literally one human handful of people. A lot of people like it on Twitter and LinkedIn and share it, but actually, people who click the link, very minimal. I don't care. I'm still happy to write it every week and enjoy it. But when I make a video, I really want people to watch it because there's been so much investment of time, effort, and myself into it.
Yeah.
So I put out this little kind of almost like a teaser, and I wanted to see how popular that was. Because if you make a video about Satoru Yamazaki, you're going to get the views. You're going to get people typing that into Google. If you make
Absolutely.
a video called Mars's obscure Yakushima aging cellar, not many people typing those words into Google. So,
Fair enough.
but it
Okay.
seems like there is some demand for that. So I'll see. I'll find a way to. I took a lot of footage, and I'll find a way to incorporate some of that in the future videos.
I'm
So
trying to find the link to that one right now.
Sure.
Which
While you're doing that, shall I kind of jump back on the plane and get back into
get on the
Kagoshima?
plane, go back to Kagoshima City for us.
I think there's two really cool things to talk about from my time in Kagoshima that are drinks related. I mean, I did a lot of really great tourism there. I went to a town called Chiran, which is kind of in the middle of Kagoshima Prefecture, famous for two main things. One is its beautiful samurai gardens, beautiful, just lovely part of the world to walk around. And the second one is for its war museum, which focuses on the Toko, as we would know them, the kamikaze fighters, the kamikaze. In fact, as a result of the bit of Kagoshima history for you, so you've got Chiran, and then next to it, you've got Hombo Shuzo's distillation facilities, which have been around for a very long time, around 100 years, and are most familiar to whiskey fans as Tsunuki. And the buildings that you go and visit were built post-war because of that proximity to the kamikaze base. Hombo supplied, were involved in the war effort, and as a result, that made them a bombing target. So, luckily, it's 2022 now, and I visited. So, from the drink side, I'll talk a bit about my time visiting Kanosuke, and then I'll talk a bit about basically drinking in Kagoshima. Which, if anybody's watching this, as soon as a lot of people, as I know because I work in tourism, a lot of people come into Tokyo and they travel on the Golden Route, what's called Tokyo, Hakone,
the Triangle,
Kyoto, Osaka, and then maybe they make it for a day trip down to Hiroshima. And I'll be planning trips very differently when people come back, especially hopefully some of the tour guests I'm going to have who have got to know me through Kanpai Planet and have a big interest in drinks. We're going to be going down to Kagoshima because absolutely fantastic stuff. But we'll come on to that. So there are now 3 whiskey distilleries in Kagoshima, right? There's Tsunuki, who we've mentioned, Hombo Shuzo, Mars Whiskey's facilities. I love this. It gets quite confusing because you always use these different company names, right? But basically, the Hombo group is like this kind of mini Keiretsu Zaibatsu conglomerate. That's how I would say it in English, with a lot of interests, primarily in the Kyushu area, ranging from soft drinks, some Coca-Cola contracts down there.
There definitely is,
to convenience stores. And then within that, there's Hombo Shuzo, the Hombo brewery / distillery / whatever, drinks guys. And then under that, they have Mars Whiskey, which is their whiskey brand. And then below that, they have their 3 distilleries. And confusingly, their Shinshu distillery, they brand those drinks as under the Komagataka brand. So, unfortunately, everybody has to keep up. We don't have time to work a mixed ability room today. So there's those guys. And then there's Kanosuke. And Kanosuke are an offshoot of guys who you've been familiar with for a long time, Komasa Jozo.
Yeah.
Right? Doing some fantastic shochu work down there. Headed at the moment by their 4th generation owner, Yoshitsugu Komasa. And then there's Ontake, and I'll just mention them briefly. Ontake is a whiskey distillery at this private golf club. Very, very secretive place. And they're doing mysterious things. They're part of Nishi Shuzo, which I think you've had some content about them.
They're huge. Yeah, they're a big shochu maker. So yeah, they're doing a lot of moving, a lot of shaking. And Ontake is going to be a destination, I'm sure.
So Kanosuke, I visited them before. The last time I went there was in October. I interviewed the president, Komasa-san, and incorporated some of that content in my review of their second edition whiskey that they brought out. But in the meantime, things have gone very well for these guys, right? So they're actually part owned by Diageo now. And we all know who Diageo are. Diageo have a kind of private equity venture capital type incubator arm, which they're involved with, called Distill Ventures. And through Distill Ventures, Diageo took an undisclosed minority stake in Kanosuke in the middle of last year. So that's an injection of money.
Big time.
Yeah, and that money, I'm sure, is going to be deployed through expansion. Now, I'm smiling here because it's obvious, you know. I mean, from the beginning, I've been saying that this money is going to be used for expansion. And I think that my sense from going down there, they're very secretive actually down there.
Sure.
But my sense is that exciting things are going to be happening.
Yeah.
So it was great to catch up with Komasa-san again, the Shacho. Like I said, a lot of plans that he can't actually explicitly talk about, but yeah, that there's going to be a big growth in whiskey coming out of Kanosuke, which is fantastic because they're making some really great stuff. So
yeah,
them and Hombo have really proven that Kagoshima whiskey can be a thing. And not only can it be a thing, it can be a world-class thing. And I think that's super exciting. And I think that's super exciting because hopefully it's going to reciprocate back onto the shochu industry as well, which will be great for you guys, you know. So that was actually Komasa-san's kind of original vision. It might have been a little bit waylaid by what's happened with Diageo, but he originally set up, you know, having tried to sell shochu overseas, he's like, nobody's heard of this stuff. I thought everybody had read Chris Pellegrini's The Shochu Handbook, but apparently only a tiny handful.
Only like one tiny human handful.
Yeah.
I've actually read it.
I think my bookshelf here is on the right. I think I've got 3 of the 5 copies sold here on that.
Yeah, I think you do. I owe you a beer.
The other 2 owners of the other 2 copies are on the call. So anyway.
Yeah, they are. And yeah.
Shochu obviously just starting, I think even though for us who are involved in it, we're like, oh, there's a new article about shochu every week in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, right? New video on Kanpai Planet. But so it seems like it's happening, but I really think we're only at the tip of the iceberg.
Just barely brushing up against it.
It seems like we're all in, but nowhere near, because we're coming from 0 international base, really.
Yeah.
So it's going to take still another decade or more of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
But I really think that what I'm hoping is that people go, they ask questions. They're like, oh, you know, this whiskey's coming out of this climate. What else are they doing? And then that will reciprocate back onto the shochu.
Hopefully. Yeah, the folks down there are just waiting for any sort of breeze to blow in their direction. And yes, so they can set sail for international waters. It's been a long time coming, and we're going to have to wait a little bit longer with the current logistical issues and shipping issues that are bedeviling the entire infrastructure of the planet. But I think good things are to come. And yeah, you know, these intrepid distilleries that are focusing on not just whiskey, but also the millions of Japanese gin expressions that are out there these days. It does bring the discussion back to Japan's indigenous spirits at one point or another, and I think that's incredibly valuable. But yeah, Kanosuke, they're killing it. I'm very excited about what Komasa-san has in store for us next. Obviously, the injection of capital is going to do wonders for their ability to innovate and expand their aging facilities and whatever else they have in mind.
One of the biggest issues I think that faces a lot of these Japanese craft distilleries is that their scale means that their volume of liquid isn't going out. This is a problem I face when even thinking about things to review, right? Like that. I mean, even for Suntory, you know, right, making, you know, Yamazaki, right, the biggest selling single malt in this country. availability to that bottle is very difficult, let alone
Yeah.
trying to get, Kanoska's distillery, I mean, a distillery exclusive, 1,000 bottles of that, or even, this thing, right, which was their second kind of more mainstream release.
Yeah.
I estimate that at roughly, I don't know, 5,000 or so bottles, right? It means it's very difficult for people to drink. So
Yeah.
for this to stop being some, niche or cult or fetish, you need to have widespread accessibility to the liquid. And I'm really hoping Kanoska will be able to ramp up production very soon.
Yeah.
So so that was super fun. And then
I bet.
I went drinking in Kagoshima.
Yeah.
And I think I want everybody watching this to come away with a sense that of, hopefully when I talk, as we're talking about it, you appreciate just how fun it is to just spend a few evenings in this great city, right?
Yeah. It is. It's an absolute pleasure. And people get addicted to it very quickly. Kagoshima City itself is very long and narrow. So the playground area, the adult playground where you can do your drinking and your eating and your carousing is quite compact.
It
It's
is.
really kind of all it's put there right on this strip of land between a sheer mountain face, Shiroyama, and then the bay, which is home to a very angry volcano. But let's not think about that. And there's just so many great places and so many great people to run into. So yeah, what were some of the highlights of
Well,
Tenmonkan?
that was it. I think that's great. Like when I um and it made me think sometimes like about so for the last 20 years I've run a birthday trip. I'm very honored. My friends from all over the world will gather in some city. uh, for the first 10 years this was primarily Malmo in Sweden and Copenhagen in Denmark, and then it's grown internationally from there. And as soon as I landed in Kagoshima and got to Tenmonkan, which is like the main drinking area, it reminded me of a comment I'd often made about how, you can have the great cities of the world, London, Edinburgh, Paris, Sydney, not New York, and they, all you need is like four bars, and a restaurant. As long as they're all good, then you're kind of sorted for at least one night.
Uh huh.
And kind of Kagoshima reminds me of that, because there are many more. There are 400 great bars, and 4,000 great restaurants. But they're all compact, they're easy to navigate, right?
Yeah.
So you can just so easy just walk from one to the other, um, and do these fantastic, food and drinks crawls, which make it a must visit. Secondly, the quality of what you're going to be eating and drinking is absolutely fantastic.
Mm.
Food is world class. The local specialities, and then just the general quality of everything else around that, and then the drinks are absolutely amazing. And a third reason is that you really understand when you're there just how much shochu is part of the fabric of society, which I knew it, and I've heard you talking about it for so long, but until my first visit last year, and then this visit, it suddenly clicked. I really understood what people like you and Maya, uh, who does great work down there, educating people about shochu in Roku Shochu Bar. What you guys have been telling me for so long. Just how much it makes the city grow, and people know each other. So you've got these guys, right? Like, one of the evenings we were drinking, a manager of or the owner of one of the shochu distillery, right?
Yeah, he showed up. Yeah.
Showed up, and that's not the first time, right? I've spent I've spent about a week of my life in total now, or more actually. Maybe 10 days of my life drinking in Kagoshima, and the number of times I've been somewhere and then the owner of or somebody associated with the industry has rolled up has been disproportionate.
Yeah, it is remarkable. It's so easy. You can just check Instagram, look at people's stories, and then you're like, okay, he's in town, she's in town. All right, there, and you can make a pretty good, educated guess about where to bump into them because you kind of know their route after a while. Yeah, it's remarkable. You have to, if you're trying to stay under the radar, Tenmonkan is not the place.
Absolutely not. Absolutely no way. Yeah, so not a city to be, I won't finish that sentence. What I will say is that it really is like Cheers. Everybody knows your name, and it's quite incredible. And it's quite incredible. And I mean, I don't know. We can mention some really specific venues, but I mentioned Roku earlier on. I know that's come up before because Maya's been a fantastic guest for you guys as well. But some of the izakaya I visited, I really liked Yokoban. That absolutely awesome place.
Yeah, it's a good. That's a lot of fun. If you're into places where you get to pour your own drinks, and the food's phenomenal, then Yokoban is for you. And it's just it's part of the DNA down there as much as the shochu is just the connection with people and having places where you can go out together and talk and sit for many hours and drink shochu slowly or quickly if that's your thing, and then roll on down the covered arcade alleyway to the next place. So it's a lot of fun. That's another bucket list. You've mentioned 2 bucket list items for people here today. One being Yakushima, which, as you said, is on the World Heritage list, and then Tenmonkan, which I think is an absolute pleasure.
That should be on the World Heritage list.
Is it right? The one detractor is the fact that the airport's too damn far away from the city. It's like a 40-minute bus ride, but still, there are worse places, obviously.
Yeah, it's not it's not a showstopper because that bus runs every 20 minutes basically. So like as soon as you clear the plane, you get
1,300 yen pile on in.
Unless you're super unlucky, and it will drop you directly in the center of Tenmonkan, so you can stop off for a quick drink on the way to your hotel if you're parched, as you might be after your flight.
Yeah.
Also, some really great whiskey bars down there as well, which I was quite impressed with. There's 2 I'd like to give a shout out to. One is called BB13, which is in a former, I think, Taisho era, kind of 1920s-ish, post office building. So beautiful architecture and fantastic food and drink, primarily whiskey, but also some great cocktails being made there. And another bar I discovered, which was super cool, is a bar called Dufftown. So I like the name. The gentleman opens early as well, which always is impressive for me, and I highly recommend a visit to those 2 establishments.
BB13 and Dufftown. Nice.
Yep.
You heard it here first. I was unaware of those places, so I'm gonna have to pin those on my map. Excellent. Well, we're just cognizant of time. We're running up against the hour. Why don't we? What are anything that you'd like to tell people? Where can people find you online other than on YouTube, of course, which we have scrolling along the bottom here?
Yeah.
Can you tell people where they can consume more either Maction Planet or Kanpai Planet or just regular old Salman content?
Sure. Thanks everybody. So the travel business, the hub of that is mainly the website. So mactionplanet.com. Maction, a portmanteau of Mac and action, a name I came up with before I understood anything about search engine optimization. Mactionplanet.com. And then through that, you'll be able to find, luckily, because the name Maction Planet, nobody decided to take it prior to 2017. I'm at twitter.com/MactionPlanet. Instagram.com/MactionPlanet. No underscores, no dots, nothing. No need to do anything funny. No numbers. Basically, at Maction Planet on all the social media platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn as well. And the same with Kanpai Planet as well. So again, that's primarily video led at the moment, but I'm rubbing my hands with glee. I say soon because I think I said this when I was last on here about a year ago, but soon there will be a kanpaiplanet.com, and I'm hoping to start putting out a bit more content that doesn't need a 10-minute video for it. You know, not every single drink I drink needs, you know, that much exposition, but I still want to provide that content and that information to people. There's also going to be one of those Patreon style membership
Okay.
clubs that people will be able to join.
Okay.
I launched one of these buy me a coffee things, and just for people to be able to, because people were asking me for sort of a way to show appreciation for all of this, you know, content. So that exists, buymeacoffee.com/Kanpai Planet. But very soon, very exciting, there's going to be one of these tiered reward programs for supporters. So I'm in the final stages of trying to figure out what rewards people really want, and what can add value to the community.
Okay, well, we'll have to have you back on the show to tell us more about that, because I think that's a model that a lot of people have pondered, whether they're doing content or they're providing some sort of service. I think everybody kind of thinks about, well, how do I toggle this? And you've obviously wrestled with this for quite a while now, and it would be great to get your insights into what you think are the best practices there. So good luck with that. I know there's a lot of careful decisions that need to go into it, and I know that you'll overthink every single one of them and obsess about them endlessly, and then we'll talk about it over a drink soon, I hope.
Brilliant.
So thank you.
I don't know where you got that impression from over the last decade, but anyway, thank you. I saw you flashed up a couple of nice comments about making sake on Sado, I think from Chris and John as well. Really, those comments mean so much to me, because thank you so much. And thank you, Chris, for having me, and thank you, Armando, as well, for chiming in at the death there.
My pleasure, our pleasure entirely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for the most recent episode of Shochu'sday. Of course, you can find Shochu'sday every Tuesday, at least in the United States, Wednesday morning here in Japan, and it's always 10 a.m. over here when we do this. And next week we'll be back again, same time, same place, for another episode. Until then, to everybody out there around the world in Shochu'sday world, from both of us here in Tokyo, Japan, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.